Hi, I'm Stephanie Corneliussen, and I play Victoria in the new movie, The Invitation, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat. You and Walter seem to be getting awfully close, Evie. I'm curious, though. What has he told you about us?
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So today we have a special guest on the show. Today I'm talking to Stephanie Corneliussen, who plays Victoria in The Invitation, which is currently in theaters right now. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me. What a great pronunciation of my last name. You did that flawlessly.
Awesome. Thank you. I always worry about that, so I'm glad that I got that right.
I'll cut this out, put it like on a little blip and on my Instagram, and people will know this is the way.
Thank you. So, hey, congratulations first off on the film. I know the first week it came out, it was number one at the box office, which is awesome. So, as I mentioned, you play the character of Victoria in this film, and when we meet her, she's kind of mysterious. So, where, what kind of attracted you to this role and this project in the first place?
It was so Jessica Thompson reached out to me about the project. Her and Emil Gladstone and Sony saw me as Victoria. So they reached out and I knew that was a role that I would love to do. It's something it's different from the character in itself is different, but the vibe of that, villainess is something that I've become quite comfortable doing. So I read her. I thought it was so exciting to get to do something new. Horror is a new genre for me, and being a vampire. I mean, I don't mind admitting, like I'm into that sort of stuff. So I thought that was a really cool thing to put on the checklist, and something fun for my kid to grow up and watch one day. And yeah, so it was that whole world of something familiar but something new, and then a really great new modern take on a classical story. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, heads up, guys. I mean, that's like slight like spoiler. You see it in the trailer, but we will get into spoilers in this interview. So just a heads up for you guys. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go check out the film. But yeah, we'll definitely get into a little bit of spoilers here. Actually, that was kind of leading into like my next question for you. I was gonna say that you, Alana, you were basically playing the Brides of Dracula in
Yep.
this film. So your character Victoria, she kind of treats Lucy, at least like it felt like at times, kind of treats her like the annoying little sister, at moments. And then like when Evie comes into the picture, she doesn't really care for her like at all. So the dynamic between like your three characters was definitely one of my favorite aspects of this film. So I was wondering if you could just kind of talk a little bit about that and working with Alana and Nathalie like specifically.
I mean, first of all, working with those two ladies it has been one of the highlights of my career. We formed such good friendships. I literally just got off the phone with Alana, and yeah, she shooting a new project right now. And I mean, it was so funny because the dynamics between the three characters is really toxic. Better so between Nathalie and Alana's character. There's some real also sisterly love there. Funny enough. But the dynamic between us in real life was so great. It was like hanging out with friends every day. It really made work a lot more fun. Um, but yeah, the dynamic between, well, we see Emmeline, the third bride, in the beginning of the movie. We kind of see what happens to her and as to why we need Evie to come join the family. And I think if we had explored that dynamic, that was a bit of a toxic dynamic between Victoria and her as well, in the sense that she couldn't control Emmeline, but I don't think anybody could control Emmeline, which is why she ended up taking a very tragic control herself. But with Lucy, I think, Victoria spent the past 100 years trying to indoctrinate this poor girl, and with some really callous and disturbing methods. And unfortunately, Lucy, as you can tell, is a lot younger when she turned. So she was malleable, I guess, in that sense. Not that young people are today at all, but They do their very own thing, and I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it becomes a very toxic, controlling relationship. But at the same time, there's a lot of love because, Lucy is the only one who actually really cares for Victoria. So it's a weird sort of like narcissistic supply. There's love, but there's so much jealousy, and there's this need for control, and it's odd. And then Evie comes in, who just doesn't care. She doesn't need to please anybody. She doesn't care. Like, I mean, immediately Victoria tries her,
Oh, yeah.
her ways on Evie, and she's just not buying it.
No,
And I think that is such a strong, that ends up being a very strong visual for Lucy, who then realizes that, hey, maybe this isn't the way. Maybe I don't need to do this.
put up with this. Yeah. What like, 'cause you guys definitely had a good, fair share of scenes together. What was like your favorite scene working with, with those two?
I mean, so granted, what ends up in the movie isn't necessarily always what was shot on the days,
Yeah.
but I think the spa scene is pretty fantastic.
Yep.
Um, it's really a scene that I enjoy a lot, and it was a crazy time shooting that scene, actually, because we were shooting in this beautiful bathhouse in Budapest, and the acoustics in there made it so that when I was in the water, it's a dome.
Yep.
When I was in the water, I couldn't hear Natalie, and she couldn't hear me.
Oh,
So we ended up playing this whole scene without actually being able to hear each other, and having a production assistant cue us every time the other person was done speaking, which is,
wow.
I mean, it's not only the technicality of acting. You can't have a conversation like that. So we
Yeah.
were we were quite worried how that was going to turn out, and then it just turned out to be such a magnificent scene, and I was so pleased with it, and it was so much fun.
Wow, that adds like so much to now, like going back and like watching that again, knowing
And
now
you
that,
can't tell at all. I was like, how did they
yeah,
pull that off? Like, and
yeah,
unfortunately, we were on location. We didn't have earpieces, and that could have probably fixed it. But it was just, yeah, it was kind of challenging. And then being, you know, naked in a pool where
yeah.
30 people are running around, and also adding that, it was a tough day that ended up being something really beautiful.
Wow, yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, never would have thought that, until you just like mentioned that. So I mean, yeah, the
It's
scene for
so unglamorous behind the scenes.
no, fantastic. That's what I love, though. I love those kind of things. I always, it's one thing to see the films like on the big screen, but the amount of work and stuff that goes behind the scenes, I'm a nerd for that kind of stuff. So I always appreciate those little, kind of stories. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. But yeah, it was fun. It was. I think Jessica Thompson was surprised. She asked us in the beginning, Nat and Alana and I. She's like, I need you guys to bond. So I need you guys to like hang out and like get to know each other, because it does help in your performance.
Yeah,
It's there's not always chemistry, but when there is, it definitely it really it adds something to it. And I
yeah.
think she was surprised at what she got snowballing there.
Yeah. I say no. You can, as an audience member, oftentimes you can definitely tell when that you have that chemistry with cast members like on the set. It comes across on the screen, and you can tell that
And
you three.
And I only mentioned, sorry to cut you off. I only mentioned the girls, but the women. This applies to the whole cast,
Yeah,
and to Courtney Taylor, and to Sean Pertwee, and to Thomas, and to Shu Skinner, and to Tan Chaudhry. Like, everybody was just so lovely.
yeah. It definitely takes a whole team to to make a film, or a TV project, anything like that. It takes a whole team to do that for sure. Now, which I think you kind of like addressed like in the beginning, but correct me if I'm wrong, but this was both your first time, but I'm pretty sure director her first time doing a horror, like jumping into like horror, like at all, right?
Yes.
So what was it like jumping into this realm of horror for the first time?
I mean, I felt really confident. I've seen Jessica's prior work, and she knows how to tell a very clear story, she knows how to handle any subject really, and form it into the vision that she wants. So I knew that she was going to do great with this. I knew that it was going to be like not silly or campy, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I trusted her vision a lot. But for me, it was really that. It was like, how do you make a like, I'm not trying to make a real person into a real person. I'm trying to make a vampire into a real person that I needed the audience to hate, you know? I don't need you to like her. I need you to hate her. So it was kind of like, how do you do that and also add the element that she's supernatural? It was fun, and also make her scary and make her like all these things. But really, I found that I think the less you do, the better.
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. And when we meet, I don't know if this is something that because I know sometimes I've spoken to different actors that sometimes they do this, sometimes they don't. But when we meet, Victoria, she's been part of this family for quite a long time, been part of this life. What do you think her life was kind of like before the events of this film? Was that something that you had thought about at all?
I can't tell you that.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, I do want to ask you about and kind of we're getting into it a little bit there, but one of my other favorite aspects of this film was just the atmosphere, and part of it was just like the beautiful set that you guys were working on, especially the mansion set. So I wanted because it was almost in a way almost its own character in the film. Just when you're in that house and it's dark at nighttime, you see shadows, the way that things are lit and everything. So as an actor, how much does that help you having, being on a set like that where you have this beautiful place? Kind of, does it really kind of put you in that mood?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it really does. And it is, and I think that's why a lot of actors prefer to shoot on location and not always in studio, because it definitely, but I will say, the scene designers make the environment, even while you're shooting, even if you're missing walls and ceilings and all that stuff, they make it enthralling, but there is something extra. There's an extra added element to being on location and being in those surroundings. And there's a scene in the movie, a nighttime cocktail party, and that was actually shot in on the lawn next to the castle, and that was very effective. It's my home, or it's Victoria's home in the movie, but it was very intimidating. So it was in a good sense.
Was there ever any moments being in this place? Because I can see being there at night, like it's beautiful, during the day, but was there ever any moments where you guys were shooting at night or anything that you were actually kind of creeped out by the set?
There's so much talk about wolves in this film, and the funny thing is, there were these dogs going off while we were shooting a couple of night shoots there, and in the moonlight and in the setting, and in the vibe of things, and then just like constantly was freaking us out. It was
Those were
freaking
the
us
actual
out.
dogs that we were,
And more
we were
time, they
watching.
were just dogs, but in my mind, it was wolves, and they were there. They were there.
That's I mean that's creepy, but it definitely puts you in that place, puts you in that mood. So that adds to it for sure. So yeah, I mean that was one of my favorite things. I mean, for one of the most important things for me for a horror movie to be effective, you got to do a good job at establishing that atmosphere early on,
Oh
and that's
yeah,
something
the
that I think
tone.
the Invitation does right from the get-go.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you're so right. That is so important. It really, really is. So much more than anything else, really.
Yeah, yeah. And another scene that I wanted to talk to you about, because a good, at least if not everybody, a good chunk of you are involved in it, is definitely the dinner scene where we get the big reveal and shit kind of hits the fan there. So can you just talk about filming that scene? Because I imagine a lot probably went into that.
Since you like the behind the scenes stuff, yeah, it was intense shooting that scene. There were so many elements technically that the crew needed to cover, but the actual dinner scene, a lot of the food was real food, and there there was a lot of it was hot. It was shot over a few days. There was a lot of food that was just, out there on the table, staying there. By day three, the stink in that room was
Wasn't so good.
pretty. pretty freaking intense. And I think that that definitely added to the atmosphere of it being an unpleasant environment to be in, not just for Evie, but for all of
Yeah,
us.
for everybody.
But otherwise, that scene was fantastic. Oh, actually, the makeup, or she Petrilla, she came up with a great idea for because it did start to smell. So she would it was during COVID that we shot the movie, so we were all wearing masks, and she would line the inside of our mask with like Tiger Balm, eucalyptus Tiger Balm, which really
There you
helped.
go.
But nobody was minding wearing their masks. It was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was a really fun scene to shoot. I think Natalie did such an incredible job in that scene. Um, that really showcases her acting abilities.
Was it,
And
I
so
have
did
to
Tom.
ask you, as far as like, because you guys, you get to see like the fangs for you guys. Was it challenging to wear those? Because I know some, like obviously, sometimes it can make it a little difficult to talk or just laugh in general. Was that hard getting those like put
Oh
in?
yeah, we definitely had homework. We had to wear the teeth for 24 hours before we shot any dialogue with the teeth. And that was very smart.
Yeah.
And yeah, but they are real. There's no CGI there. It was all the fingers too. Everything was cast specifically for us, and because it was custom made, I think that made it easier for it to like fit around and but we did experiment with various ways of getting them to stay in the mouth. And at one point, I had issues getting them out.
Yeah, no, I could understand that. It's like, 'cause I mean, not everybody just doesn't go around, wearing like fangs or anything every day. So it's definitely a challenge. It's like kind of like for someone I know, like for first time for me wearing contacts, didn't never used to wear them before. First time trying to put it in, your natural instinct, your eye just wants to blink and pop them out. So I can imagine kind of similar concept of like putting something foreign into your mouth like that.
It's actually it is exactly that. I did a whole a show called Deception, and I had to wear one brown contact and the other eye had to be green, and it was exactly that. It
Yeah,
was like I had to wear them for like a good hour before we could film because otherwise I was like,
yeah. I feel you there. It's a
it's the
challenge.
same. If there's a foreign body in one of your, most vital areas of survival. So it's like, or for
Yeah.
survival. So it's an adjustment.
But I gotta say, I mean, it's great that you guys ended up going the physical route because that's something else for me at least. I always prefer when films do practical effects when they can rather than CGI, just because I don't know something about that with horror, it just makes it a lot more believable. But yeah, the effects in this film too, I was like really impressed by some even which I know that was like probably more like the CGI where at one point I think like Nathalie with like the veins that you would see with like
Yeah, the coming on and disappearing.
yeah.
But we were wearing actual prosthetics, veins.
Wow, okay. So
Yeah, we were. Yeah,
I
we were
thought
in the
that
chair
was
for a couple of hours every day, getting
wow.
prosthetics on our hands and on our cheeks and necks and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it's good then when you think that it's CGI, but it's actually like practical effects. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. Hey, I'm learning some. So now I got to go back and watch this film because some of the stuff was like where I didn't pick up
I
initially.
mean, you said before about Jessica, and it was her first horror movie, but it's like she really she watched every vampire movie first of all ever made, and it's like she really dove into this project with such integrity and such respect for the genre because I mean, you and I are both horror fans, I imagine, right? And it's
Oh yeah,
it's I mean, we're die hard, you know what I mean? You can't don't f with it. It's
yeah,
not like it's something it holds weight in the cinematic universe,
yeah,
and I think she really did great respect to it, and she was adamant about it being real effects, being real scares, being real locations, being real jumps,
yeah. No, I some of the and that kind of like lends to the atmospheric aspect of it, but like I loved that you didn't. A lot of the stuff was like in the dark, especially like earlier on in the film when you don't know what's going on. I love just kind of seeing when stuff would happen to certain people. You would see, the vampires attacking people. You would see just like shadows. And to me, sometimes in horror, like you kind of mentioned it earlier, less can be sometimes less is more. So you didn't necessarily see anything, but you just see these like shadows attacking these people, and that kind of creeps me out more than seeing necessarily like an actual full figure.
Me too. It is foreboding.
Yeah, and you just like kind of mentioned this for her. Now, for you, Stephanie, did you get a chance like before this film when you were preparing for this role? What kind of prep did you do? Did you go ahead and like watch any of the other vampire films like in the genre, or was there anything else that you did to help prepare you for this role?
I mean, I've seen them all, so I felt pretty prepared. I felt prepared in yeah, in terms of the cinematic aspect and in terms of the mentality. And I guess I can talk about. So at the time, Victoria's backstory when I was, at the when I was preparing for the role,
Yeah,
we wanted to give her, something. I wanted to give her like a crazy backstory, but I decided to just keep her, play her pure and simple a vampire villain. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I felt like I wanted to do something different than everything that's out there, but also pay homage to the expectations from the audience. You know what I mean? It's it's kind of sometimes as myself as an audience member, it's like sometimes I know what I want.
yeah,
Like you're
exactly.
giving me House of Dragon. I want House of Dragon. I want Game of Thrones. I don't want something new. You know what I mean? So it's
Yep.
like I want new characters and all of that stuff, but I know what I want. And I tried to do that with her. Physically, it was a different or it was a different thing. I had just given birth not too long before that. So trying to get into shape of a 500-year-old super privileged aristocratic woman who's not given birth.
Yeah.
That was challenging. Um,
So there
but
was a number of challenges.
all the stunt training definitely whooped me into shape for that.
Well, hey, I mean, yeah, obviously impressive too. I mean, so it sounds like, yeah, I mean, there was a number, and I know there is like in a lot of films, you have like your challenges and stuff like that. But I mean, some of the stuff that you had to go through, I mean, quite impressive.
Oh, thank you. But it was such a good time, honestly. It really was. I'd do it all over again.
Yeah. Now, as far as to just kind of, to wrap things up, Stephanie, is there anything else that you would like to say to fans in general? And I don't know if there's any projects that you can kind of talk about maybe coming up in the future. I know what you
Yeah.
can say.
I love hate being asked that question because it's like you can only really reply with like excitement in your face, but while you're saying I can't tell you anything.
Yeah.
But no, I mean in terms of saying something, I really hope that people will go and watch it and take it for what it is. It's a modern film. It's but it's something that was made with a lot of love and a lot of passion, and I hope that people will appreciate that.
And honestly, I think the best for to answer like the second part of the question would just be to go follow you on Instagram because I mean anything that once you can talk about it will probably be posted on like social media.
Yeah, for sure.
And what your full like is it just like your name Stephanie for Instagram if people want to follow you?
At Stephanie Corneliussen, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who has that name.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, hey, thank you again, Stephanie, for coming on here, talking about, the invitation. Again, I love hearing all the behind the scenes stuff. I just like absolutely nerd out on that kind of stuff. So thank you again for taking time out coming on here, and you're definitely welcome back anytime in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to be back. Hi, I'm Stephanie Corneliussen, and I play Victoria in the new movie, The Invitation, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat.